Right. The kid is back. Philanthropy and Focus. Your boy Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector at the top of the house, just below the roof. I'm in my attic. I love saying I'm in my attic, although I will tell you this time of year when I haven't set up the little air conditioner, it's a little bit warm in the attic, man. I think it's 85 degrees outside. It's 95 degrees in the attic. It's 105 degrees inside my head. The show is Philanthropy and Focus. Namaste in the attic. Philanthropy and Focus. Every single week, I bring to you a leader of a nonprofit organization to tell their story and amplify their message. And, I think about strategic alliances. I think about partnerships. I think about collaboration. I was jotting some notes a minute ago. And in collaboration with our business, Vanguard Benefits, we decided this year that each month, in honor of an awareness month, I would align an episode of the show, Philanthropy and Focus, with our agency, Vanguard Benefits. And, you might say, well, Tommy D, why didn't you do that from the beginning? Well, because we were trying to figure out the whole thing, trying to strategize and figure out what the best way to align the show and align my business, our business, Ed and Vinny, Ed Probst and Vince Blasi, my two partners, and really figure that out. And I will tell you, talk about collaboration. Some of the efforts that we do from a marketing perspective are involved with the Spirit of Huntington Art Center, which is out here on Long Island at the old South Huntington Library, which is a place for creative expression. It's a community art center, but it's also a nonprofit marketing agency. And they did our rebrand. So check out spiritofhuntington.org or check out me, TommyD.NYC on the Instagram, connect with me or an email, TommyD@philanthropyandfocus.com, PHOCUS. And the thing with Spirit of Huntington is we've been trying to really talk about storytelling. And so we decided back starting in February of this year that each month, one of my episodes would be dedicated to an awareness month. That could also be aligned to what we're talking about from an agency perspective. We own an employee benefits firm. We do group benefits, group health insurance. We help nonprofits and businesses utilize benefits to attract and retain talent. That's the end of the commercial. Here's the deal, though. There's a lot of education. We're big on education. So there's a lot of education we can bring. We started this off in February with American Heart Month with Melinda Murray Nyack from the Dom Hart 21 Fund, Memorial Fund. And which now, to share with everybody, in October of this year, I'll be an honoree at their gala in the appreciation for some of the work I've done. And I listen, I appreciate the honor. I'm grateful for it. I'm just trying to do my part to spread the word and get the information out that nonprofits are doing, which is what Philanthropy and Focus is all about. So I'm not saying everybody should make me your honoree. Don't, please, unless you think it's appropriate. But in reference to what I'm telling you, it's all about that alignment. So Melinda was on the show back in February, talked about American Heart Month, and in conjunction with that, Vanguard put a lot of information out on the education side around heart screenings and sudden cardiac arrest, which is not rare. Sudden cardiac arrest is not rare. No matter what you might hear, we have to be tested. And young people who are prone to that can have a sudden cardiac arrest, like her son, like Melinda's son Dominic, who died at 17 years old on the basketball court tragically. But that's when we see these folks that have such tragedy in their life, and then they create a nonprofit organization, and then they change the world. Those are my heroes, to be honest with you. Those are the people who are able to take this most challenging time of their life and turn it into an opportunity to make a ripple effect and improve the lives of others. All right, let's put that aside. Talking about improving the lives of others, talking about making the world a better place, options for community living. Allison Covino is here. Allison, before I go on my rant, I got a couple more things. I'm already in the rant. Let me pause the rant. I want to say good morning to you. How are you? I'm thrilled you're here.
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. We're going to have a great conversation today because leading up to this, we had a great conversation. And I think things about great conversations is one leads to the next. It just so happens that the one we're having today, people are eavesdropping, people are listening, people are paying attention either right now or, well, whatever it is, it's right now for them, but they might be finding this down the road. So HIV AIDS Stigma Awareness Month is an awareness month. And I texted my friend, Yolanda Urbano Gross, who is the CEO, executive director of Options for Community Living. And I say my friend because we're buds, man, and we've become friends. And I was at an event, and I don't know if you all know this, but we had a murder mystery event with Options about 3 months ago, and I won the Best Actor award because I was playing a billionaire Mexican businessman, we'll say. And I guess I did pretty good. I guess
You
I
did
got the
great.
chops.
That's your other calling, just in case you want to have another side job. You did a great job.
I do want to have another side job, and I do want to be a game show host or some sort of entertainer. And I used some of those chops here, but I had a lot of fun doing that. I have a T-shirt, best actor, options for community. Anyway, let's put that aside. But I do have the T-shirt. So when I texted Yolanda, I was like, it's HIV stigma awareness. I said, I know your organization for many, many years has served the population of people living with HIV and AIDS. And she said, well, if you want to have somebody from Options on the show to talk about this, it's Allison. This is Allison's program. She knows this program. She's going to give you all the nuts and bolts, the nuggets, the important stuff to be aware of from what our program is really doing to help people. And I said, well, that's the answer right there. Will Allison do it? And obviously she said, yeah. She said yes. Like she said yes. Like at one of those shows. She said yes. So I'm thrilled, like I say, to have you here. What we're going to do today, folks, is really take a journey. I mean, you might not realize it, but I'm 45 years old. I was born in 1978. And that puts me in a time frame where, as a young person growing up, AIDS first becomes on the scene, relative, air quotes, so to speak, as statistics say, back in 1981. That's when we heard about the first cases of AIDS, HIV/AIDS. And again, I'm not a clinician. I'm not an epidemiologist. I don't have that knowledge. I'm just talking from, growing up in that time frame. There was a lot of miscommunication, misunderstanding about the disease, right, Allison? You and I were talking about it earlier. I'm sure we'll get into some of that. But as a young person, there was fear about this, and that's 42 years ago. We're talking about 1981, right? So it's a long time ago, and certainly things have changed, and healthcare has changed in a lot of ways. So what I thought we could do is, obviously we're going to get into that conversation as it relates to HIV and AIDS. But I really wanted to get, as I like to do on the show every time, is get to know the leader who I'm speaking to. So get to know you, Allison, and have the listeners get to know you and understand your background, sort of what I said, what drew you to the work, why you do the work you do, and this journey. I mean, you've been with and at Options for Community Living since 1987. I don't do the math, but that's it wasn't last week. We'll just say that.
I was a child when I started. So
yes, yeah.
We don't want to start getting into the math, but
let's not do math. We don't do math on this show. This is not a math show.
I am a little older than you.
It's okay.
But as we were talking, I was thinking back too that I too was young when AIDS and HIV started to become known, and didn't really think that it was sort of out there. It wasn't like part of my world. It wasn't that close. It was sort of out there, and there were other.
Yeah, what do you mean by that? Because you and I talk about it, but let's set it up for people.
Like far away, like it was happening, but not anything that would permeate my personal life or anybody I knew, or because it was a different thing. People didn't seem to know too much about it, but it did seem like pretty clear that you to contract it, you would have to have sexual relations or share needles or something with a person who was infected. So that that also might have separated it from somebody's personal life, because if they thought I'm not at risk right off the bat, then I don't even have to think about it. But it sort of came closer and closer to our worlds as time went on, as we know. And I'm going to give you a chance to ask questions if you want to. I'm not going to just keep going.
I always have plenty of questions, but what my biggest question for you is, take me on this journey, please. I don't think that's a question. It was more of a statement. Will you take me on this journey, please? Your journey, as you got connected to Options for Community Living and the program from a mental health perspective, and the group homes that you were involved with, and then eventually what turned into the program that you're the leader of now and have been for a number of years. So just tell me some stories. I promise I'll ask quick questions. I don't know if they'll be good ones, but I'll do my best to ask good questions as we go through it.
Sounds good. So as you know, we started as a mental health organization. So Options, I actually came right after college and started pursuing. I had graduated with a psychology degree from Stony Brook University. So I thought, this sounded like a great place to start. A friend of mine from college worked here, and I came for the interview, and I just wanted to help people. That's how most people probably get into the field. They just want to help. And it's social work, and it's a good organization. It was founded by two women. I like that.
Mhm.
So, it felt like the right spot for me. I remember getting even a little choked up during my initial interview because I realized like this is a place I want to be. And I have fortunately got the job and started working in our mental health program. And that program was just expanding and expanding and expanding. So provides group home situations, 24/7 coverage, and lots of other types of housing for people with major mental illness, like adults, not families, but adults recovering from psychiatric disabilities. It was part of deinstitutionalization, helping people,
Let's
you
talk
know,
about that because
yeah,
people may not remember, and certainly it's before my time, but I do some work with other agencies, transitional services for New York, TSINY, and they have buildings. Again, I'm going to get super hyper local for folks. So if you're finding this, somewhere else on the planet, maybe some of this isn't relevant to you, but it happened everywhere in this country. So, but I think in terms of Creedmoor out in Queens, and TSINY has buildings on the Creedmoor campus. And, prior to folks being, and again, I'm full of love and compassion. So if I say the wrong things here, I don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings. But when people were released from institutionalized, right, being deinstitutionalized, there now had to be an answer for where folks were going to live, to commune, to, right. So there had to be the residential setting was big in the 80s, right, and that was part of what
yeah.
your organization did as
And
well.
yeah, they like more and more programs like Options had, all these different housing environments for people to be able to move to and try it out, and kind of have that staff support and get back used to community living again. So I guess, with the onset of, I think it was Thorazine at the time, or, medications that were able to help people really be able to function more independently in the community and not need hospitalization. They were coming out of Kings Park Psychiatric Center, coming out of Pilgrim
Pilgrim
State,
State,
and
yep.
yeah, that were really, full at the time. I remember visiting clients there if they had, to go back for a week or two to get stable again and come back to the home, but are kind of abandoned for the most part now. I think there's still some
Yeah.
residents on their grounds, but for the most part, that was a long time ago that people really started moving out and being able to be more independent in the community and function well. And we were there to help them, to support them and teach them those skills that they may have never gained. If somebody had a psychiatric episode, before they even became a functioning adult from their parents, they never maybe learned those skills. So they needed to learn them or relearn them. Budgeting and, medication management and symptom management and those kind of things, activities of daily living. And that's what we were there to do and help them, guide them so they were ready to go.
Second ever episode, I must reference it probably every other third episode, but the second ever episode, Dr. Larry Grubler from TSINY Transitional Services, I just mentioned, was on this program. And I say this all the time, and I don't just say this on Philanthropy and Focus. I say this amongst my life and when I'm out there in the world. And he said to me, Tommy D, because that's what he calls me, because that's my name. He goes, Tommy D. I said, yes, Larry. He said, each one of us needs support at different times. And that's what I think that for me is a thread that weaves through what I do in the world, and certainly what I do on this program and my work in nonprofits, is that we must find ways to find the love, the compassion, and the support for each other, and stop getting caught up in what I'll call some nonsensical things. And let's just get to the ground, to the root of it, and support people. And I feel like your organization is paramount in doing that sort of work. And we'll get into the piece around HIV and the stigma around HIV and AIDS for sure. I think a great baseline is just to understand that Options is at its core, a mental health organization to support individuals who need support. And support comes in a lot of ways. We're going to talk about people experiencing homelessness. We're going to talk about people experiencing and living with HIV and AIDS. So the show is Philanthropy and Focus. Your boy is a nonprofit sector connector. My guest and friend is Allison Covino from Options for Community Living, and we will be right back.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
What really drives success in business? Introducing Intangify, the show that explores the intangible assets that create value and growth. I'm Matthew Asbell, your host and an attorney focused on innovation. Join me Fridays at noon Eastern to discover how innovation, culture, and other intangibles shape thriving companies from startups to established businesses. We'll share strategies to unleash your business's true potential. Tune in live on talkradio.nyc Fridays at noon Eastern and Intangify your business today.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
That's right, gang. That's your boy, Tommy D. Cut through the static. Join me in my attic, but don't literally show up my house. It's a virtual thing. It's sort of like, it's a wink, wink, nod, nod, meet me in the attic sort of deal. Check it out. Shout out to Yolanda. She says, "You're doing great, Allison." Thanks, Tommy Demisa. I think it's time for the theme song. You were right. Yolanda and I sing that song sometimes because she goes, I gotta get back in the attic. I gotta get back on the show. I love it. Well, I love you and I love what your organization does. And if it wasn't for you being in my life, I don't get to meet Allison and we don't get to change the world together. So shout out to the universe for looking out for Tommy D and making these connections for me. All right. So highly experienced options employee that handles the access to care programs, care coordination, HIV and AIDS services, supportive housing. This is my friend Allison. She also handles the responsibility for program development and oversight in all activities with a focus in Nassau, Suffolk County. Bachelor's degree in psychology, master's degree with focus in human services from Stony Brook University. Go Seawolves, right? That's the Seawolves out there,
Yes.
right? Go Seawolves, shout out. And as we talked about, started with the organization back in 1987. Let's dive right back into the conversation. But before we do, got a shout out to Eddie Torlincasi, who says Options is a great organization. Yes, Eddie, totally agree. So if you're connected on Facebook and you want to make a comment, you're watching us talk radio, actually it's called Talking Alternative Broadcasting on Facebook. Make some comments. Shout out to Mick Collins, always checking in. Mick makes a comment, I was told there would be no math. That was you and me talking earlier on the show about math. Yeah, there's no math on this show. There's no math. I mean, I'm good with I got like, there was, like order of operations, PEMDAS, like parentheses, exponents, then I'm done. There was that was it. Like I knew there was a level where my math sort of was done. It was around the ninth grade when I kind of finished. So it's a good thing that you said there's a future in maybe acting or doing different things. Maybe maybe doing dinner theater, since I did such a great job at the Options for Community Living event. If I do say so myself. Anyway, if you want to hear that story, it's a great story. Everybody, I can go on for 65 minutes just about that one, but we're not going to do that now. We have other options at hand right now that we got to focus on. So, Allison, we talked about sort of the genesis of the organization. We talked about your background. I really want to dive into this situation as it relates to, let's just talk stigma. Let's talk stigma as it relates to HIV and AIDS, which, gang, the year is 2023. People are living long, fruitful lives with HIV and there's still a stigma. But there's still a stigma around a lot of things. So why don't you take it from there?
Well, I think, I guess it negatively affects everyone when there's a stigma. There's fear of people that might want to get tested or might want to ask questions or might want to take medications to prevent getting HIV, and they are afraid to come forward because of fear. And so I think it holds them back, and then it also holds us back from, really being able to provide the kind of services that we're equipped to do. So, it's hard sometimes for us to do outreach because, when you're at a health fair, not everybody wants to walk over to the table that says they have services for people with HIV because they don't want to be identified as at risk or a possible, person with, if they're not ready to face that. But we have some great services. So the people that have come forward and, receive services from our programs are, I always feel like they can really hook up here. We have housing, we have medical case management, we have care coordination, we have lots and lots of wraparound services to help people move forward. And, we've had people living in the housing program that we started in 1995. So even though our case management services began in 94 with, one staff, that was me, and one client at a time kind of thing, we had a housing program as well be developed so that we could provide housing for people. And lots of people were going through homelessness at the time, and broken relationships with family members, and possible recovery from substance or alcohol abuse, and maybe some mental illness. So it wasn't just HIV, it was all these layers and layers of complexities that were added in, and people needed housing. And I'm happy we started a housing program. But there are still some people there that moved in the late 90s, believe it or not, and now, are still living there. Their kids are grown. We have a client that still there. She moved in when her son was 6 months old. She was a single mom with a baby boy who's 6 months. He's now working, 21 years old, and she was quoted on another. Not that we ever listened to any other station but yours, but
you're welcome to listen to whoever you want. I'm just one guy in an attic, Allison. I appreciate it, but that's okay.
She came on the show with us and told a story, and said that all these years later she was able to make it her home, and said she felt safe there, laying her head down at night, which meant a lot, because I think she needed to feel safe, and has been in recovery and has succeeded all these years. The house is beautiful, and many clients are doing that. They've successfully, been through us through all of it. I've had also lots and lots of help. I can't take credit for, running this whole show by myself. I had a lot of help, and I have staff here that have been here from the beginning. I have, a little shout out, Carla, both Michelle's, Al, Diana, Vicky, Christine. I have a great management team, Nikki, Eric, Aaron, Darlene, and great administrative support with Lucy, and many clients that have now become staff members.
I love that too.
Which are their peer support sort of adds this layer of empathy to the program that we were maybe lacking a little bit before. Like it just changed the game and really made the program better in a lot of ways. And so that too has added a whole lot of help, and we've done such a tremendous job together. Some of the staff I mentioned were here for 25 years, and remember back in the day when we started, it felt like an emergency room. People were dying much more frequently, walking around with a lot more symptoms of HIV and AIDS, and didn't know where to turn. We were one of the first, and became the largest case management program and largest housing program for people with AIDS on Long Island.
So let's underscore that, the largest case management program for people living with HIV or AIDS on Long Island. So that's something to be said. This is it's a big island. It's a Long Island, but it's a big island, and there are millions of people here, and there are people in need. And there's so much you just said in that last piece there. Shout out to your team. Shout out to you as a leader, because you know what? That's what our nonprofit leaders are all about. It's like, yeah, Tommy, thanks for the kudos, but it's really about my people, right? I started to write down names. I heard of Dave. I heard of Carla. I heard two Michelles, and then you kept going with names, but they heard their names, and that's what's important. And I hear that from Yolanda, and I hear that from all the leaders of nonprofits that I hang out with, that it's not just me, it's about my team. It's about the people that are doing the work on the front lines. the people who are,
So hard. It's so hard. It's because people come to us with such a myriad of issues. It's not just one thing. It's usually a little package of a whole lot of things. And if our job is to sort of break that down and prioritize, with them, I mean, we are happy to do that and like kind of help and have helped so many people. But when, it's hard work. It's staff are sometimes confronted with things that they've never experienced themselves. And then it's like, let's roll up our sleeves and Google the answer here. I'm not sure, but let me help you find out, and put the two and two together. It's a difficult world, but like at this point and so long in my career, and it's probably a little unusual that somebody would come to an organization after college and stay, but it kept changing for me. It kept challenging me. And that's why I did it and wanted to serve. I remember in the beginning wanting to serve the hardest population I can imagine working with, because I felt like who, if not us, like who will do this? And I was given an opportunity and it was life-changing for me. It was hopefully, I think, life-changing for thousands of other people that have been able to benefit from the program and the services, and the heart is there, which I'm really, really, really proud of. I think we've made a heck of a difference in this world, in this island, the Long Island.
Long Island. I call it the Strong Island a lot of times just to be cute, but again, I'm a guy who spells the word focus with a PH in front of it. So don't go by me. I have my own way of seeing the world, but who, if not us? Isn't that what I tell you guys when we listen to this show, when we talk about nonprofit? Who, if it wasn't for these nonprofit organizations, does the work? I got the answer for you. It doesn't get done. I whispered, let me tell you, it doesn't get done. It doesn't. It's the nonprofit organizations, the leaders and their teams that are out there on the front lines doing the work. And as you say, your career, I don't know if you use this word, but that's what I heard. Your career evolved because the opportunity in front of you evolved and the need continued to, I think in terms of the word that was coming up for me when you sort of are presented with an individual who comes to Options for Community Living. Check out Options for Community Living, gang. If you don't know, I got to pull up the website real quick. Because so I can tell you what it is, because I think it's Options. Why don't I just do it really quick? Pause on the show. Optionscl.com org. Forget the .com. Optionscl.org. Check that out. But when you come to, and Yolanda has shared this with me over the years, and Yolanda, I'm going to try and quote you or at least get the thoughts right. When someone comes to us, like it took a lot, meaning when someone comes to Options, it took a lot to get to that point, whether it be experiencing homelessness and they were not ready to come and get services, but you need to meet them at a place where you're with them, and you're connected. And it's that so often that early interaction, I've been told, with agencies like yours and others, that is critical. It's a key point, because for this individual to come and ask for and look for services, they're at a point of serious need. And it's how we engage with those people. So I was thinking in terms of almost like a triage sort of situation, which is what you said, like we get this little package of needs and you sort of have to prioritize. So when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about that and how that really plays into the services that are offered. We can make up somebody, although you probably don't even need to make up somebody. We can just not use somebody's name and say, when this individual came to us, here's some of the things we were assessing, and here's some of the things we had at our disposal, because I think that's what really will speak to people. So folks, the reason we do the show is to shine a light on what organizations are doing, but you or somebody connected to you might have the needs for these services, and that's the point. So go to optionscl.org. I had the number too. I saw Mick Collins put it up on Facebook, the 631 number, if people need services, right? You want to shout it out, Allison?
631-361-9020.
So
and centralized intake, we can, take a call and figure out how to divert, which department that should go to. We have a great screening team.
So give it to me one more time, because I might have spoke over you. 631
361-9020.
Perfect. And we'll share that. It'll be there, and then it'll be all out on the social media. And again, I'm going long. We're supposed to be at a break right now, but this is my show and I do what I want. So guess what? So I'm doing what I want. But we will go to break, I promise, Logan. But here's the thing. It's about that. What does that look like? What's the look and feel? What's the experience? So I want to feel that when we come back, go into that conversation. So when somebody presents with some challenges and things, how the organization can reflect and be a resource. Is that good?
Yeah, absolutely.
When we come back, that's what we're going to do. The show is Philanthropy and Focus. I will always be your boy. No matter if I'm old and gray, I'll still be your boy, Tommy D. Right back.
Are you passionate about the conversation around racism? Hi, I'm Reverend Dr. TLC, host of the Dismantle Racism Show, which airs every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc. Join me and my amazing guests as we discuss ways to uncover, dismantle, and eradicate racism. That's Thursdays at 11 o'clock a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
In a post-COVID world, you may have many unanswered questions regarding your health. Are you looking to live a healthier lifestyle? Do you have a desire to learn more about mental health and enhance your quality of life? Or do you just want to participate in self-understanding and awareness? I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each Thursday, I will tackle these questions and work to enlighten you. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will be Frank About Health to advocate for all of us.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy and Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
Number's 127 or 128. I got to look it up later on, but that's how many times we've come up to the attic and done this show. And that's important to me, man, because that's a lot of opportunity. And you think in terms of, this is my mission. This is my journey to tell these stories and get the word out there. And I will tell you this, that's a lot of episodes, man, but we're just getting warmed up. I mean, I really see a day when every morning I start my day with doing an episode of Philanthropy and Focus. So, because you know why? Because selfishly, it makes me really freaking feel good. And I don't know about you, but I like to feel good. So I like to do things that make me feel good. So nobody gets hurt when we do this show. It's only a benefit for the whole world, I think. So, and it's certainly a benefit for the organizations. That's not ego. That is just my reason for doing it. All right, Allison, let's play like a role play. Like somebody comes to options. Maybe they just got released from some other program, finishing some other program, or maybe they've been experiencing homelessness for some time, or maybe they just had an illness, whatever the case is, and they present two options for community living, whether it be at the phone number we talked about, they go to the website and they schedule an appointment, or they show up in Ronkonkoma, or they show up in Hempstead. And what does that look like? What does that experience look like? So people get a feel for it.
So usually things tend to start with a phone call, although people could show up. I think it started to, those personal pop-ins, seem to decrease over time, especially during COVID, but certainly still possible. And we could always meet people in the field. So I guess I want to start by saying, even though, we assume everybody has a phone and has access to a computer or, a way to apply for services, so to speak. I guess it starts with an application and an intake, but our intake staff are perfectly capable of going out and meeting people in the field, at a library, on a park bench, just to be able to sit and have a private conversation and try to kind of understand where they're coming from. And the first step is really assessing whether they're eligible and for what program. So that's what the intake staff would do.
Yeah, let me just pause you 1 second, because I think it's super important to to realize and underscore what you just said. And as a guy who is not experiencing homelessness and has a car and has access to money to put fuel in my car, maybe I make certain assumptions from the way I see the world and what my paradigm is, right? But some people are in community with no access to a phone, no access to transportation, no access to money, struggling with homelessness and also and food insecurity. So we need to literally meet people where they are, not just in that thing where, well, we got to meet people where they are. No, like where they actually are seated or living, or right. So I think critically important, and I think it just goes to show that even somebody who is connected to this work in some regard like me doesn't remember that. Like we have to be empowered enough to show up where people are. And Yolanda and I've talked about that, like with, I think her dream is to have, and I want to find a way to make this dream happen, is to have like a bus or like a
mobile van, to get out there and be able to provide, a sandwich. Or, the other thing is, I was going to say, language. I mean, we recently purchased some mobile like phone translators. I forget the actual term, but it's something that will help our staff be able to communicate in, like 76 languages with anybody, because that too, like we can't assume anything. I remember when during COVID, a lot of clients couldn't and didn't want to leave the house and go to the doctor even because, and even our clients that have HIV did not want to leave their house and shouldn't, they're at risk for COVID, had a lot of, fears. I know they were in some ways sort of re-traumatized is, what we've heard by, COVID and the fear, but we can't just assume that those clients can have a telehealth appointment as a alternative because they may not have a computer, so they can't do that, So fortunately, one of our funders, United Way, was able to provide a bunch of tablets for clients to be able to communicate with. And that was just a pivotal kind of moment. We had funding, they had funding, we had funding available to be able to buy those, jetpacks and tablets and distribute them to clients so that they could have access. But that to me was also striking because we really, like you said, have to meet them where they're at, whatever that looks like, whatever that means, whatever that feels like, and do our best. And that is the commitment, no matter what. I think staff have sat on a park bench and listened to somebody's story about how they got there. And there are systems that we need to connect people to, and sometimes in order to access that housing. But there's some housing programs where you don't need to go through, single point of access, or you don't need to go through the Long Island Coalition, who's another partner of ours, to access the housing. Some of our housing programs are able to be accessed directly. So I really kind of hope that, in all this day and age, we're able to just make our services as accessible as they need to be for people, because we're not here to just sort of, check off boxes and screen phone calls. We're here to really find you and get you connected and give you the help that you need. And we'll help with the priorities. We just need that first step to really come from the client in order to find them.
I cut you off there because I wanted to just draw a light on that point, or shine a light on that point about just meeting them where they are. So let's go back and I want you to be able to get back on track, because I knocked you off track. And if you hang out with me, you're going to learn that's how conversations with Tommy D go. So I had a lunch meeting yesterday, and I was meeting with a new friend, and she was great because she realized how I operate, and she was like trying to like build some boundaries around the conversation for me. And I go, oh, nice job, coach. Like you would like, she's like, all right, well, let's come back from that tangent. I was like, wow, I kind of live in tangents, but shout out to Suzanne, by the way. Suzanne, thanks for lunch. So, let's talk about like that experience when they first come to you, whether we meet them on the park bench or we meet them in community or at the library. What's that assessment or that application sort of phase look like?
Just really talking mostly about eligibility for our programs and their needs, and whether there's a match there, and for what program, I guess, that's the first step. And, like we can't, enroll somebody in, for example, care coordination if they have another care coordination provider already. And they may, right, some people feel like if I go to two, I'll get my needs met better, but that doesn't work that way. Like one of us is, has you enrolled. So we need to screen to make sure that person is not enrolled with another provider. at some point in the beginning, they need Medicaid, they need to have a chronic illness, a major chronic illness, or several others, or two or more others, for care coordination. And HIV might be the one single qualifier, serious and persistent mental illness is another. But, if not, if it's a couple of other things like hypertension and diabetes, for example, we just need to get that backup documentation from their doctor. But again, this is a dialogue, it's an interactive process. We would probably do our best to either take any, documentation that they may have on them, or just let them know what they need to provide us with. We wouldn't hold up an enrollment for that, but we need to obtain that at some point. So there needs to be some exchange of paperwork. And then an explanation about the program and how it works and what we can help with and what other programs they might be available for. So that's why we centralized intake here at Options, because people may come in and be eligible for more than one program, and we want to be able to tell them everything they could benefit from while they're here. Or not, again, if they're in, other types of programs that are similar, or, they're already enrolled somewhere else, we need to kind of be able to explain that as well, like why we can't have both of us involved. So that's mostly just a dialogue, and it can happen over the phone, it can happen in person, it can happen at their home, it can happen in our office. And if somebody's lacking in transportation, again, we'll go to you. If they need a translator, we can handle that as well. We're trying to be as accessible as possible. And we would talk to them about the most important need first. Somebody may not want to talk about the doctor today because they're homeless, like we got to talk about the housing first in that case. So.
Yeah. But what's the most immediate need, right? Warm housing, a hot meal. Let's get folks situated. Let's get them kind of sorted out, and then we can sort of go from there. So I'm going to go to the website. I was going to share it I will share it when we go to break. Optionscl.org, optionscl.org. But some of the things that, you talk about care coordination, and, I know a lot of us do this in our own worlds, is like we say these words, and because it is our vernacular, like everybody knows what an HRA is. Everybody knows what an FSA is, right, Tommy? No, Tommy, that's benefit guy language. Why don't you explain what an HRA or an FSA is, and stop using acronyms? I'm not saying we're doing that now, but I'm saying, what does care coordination mean? I mean, from a perspective of services offered when you talk about that.
Advocacy, needs assessment, most importantly, goal planning, meaning, we're going to meet with whatever you want to work on. We're going to meet with you, talk to you about needs, and then make a plan of how we're going to meet those needs with your agreement. Because we can't do things for people. We need to work as a team, partner with the client, and, pull in any resources and supports that we can, but sort of walk them through, how do we meet that need, whether it's, getting a doctor, or finding a house, or reuniting with family, or finding a mental health support group. We're going to walk you through every step, whether it's, transportation, and my staff, they do a lot of help with transportation and coordinating that with folks, just to be able to get there. So we're going to try to break down whatever barriers exist and get you to where you want to be. And the whole goal is to really prevent hospitalization or high use of the emergency room. It's to keep people functioning independently in the community, and optimal health is really the goal, is to get you healthy.
Yeah. And I remember, we got to go to break in a sec here, which, Allison's probably blowing your mind. Like, we're almost through this entire show. Like, that's how my shows go, because we have so much fun and we got a lot of information that goes quick. Here's what I want to just say. I remember this one. It was like an anecdote, and I'm sure there's thousands of stories just like this. So if I don't get the details right, I'm sure it applies in some fashion to someone else. But it was like, Yolanda and I were talking one day, and it was Yolanda Rubano Gross, who's the CEO out there at Options Gang. If you don't know Yolanda, you need to. And these are conversations, I'm sure, Allison, that you have all the time with someone who was sick, was ill, and it could have been somebody, I believe, that was HIV positive. And they weren't taking care of themselves because they didn't have the ability to take care of themselves, because they were living on the street and they couldn't. It was like this situation, like, what's the order? We joked before about the order of operations in math, but like, I gotta stay dry and I gotta find a meal. Like, taking my meds is like again, if you're living inside and that's not an issue for you, yeah, your meds are a priority, right? But if if there's other things like I need to eat and get out of the elements, well, then you don't always get to that other stuff, right? And I feel like that those sort of anecdotes is a big part of what Options does, because you're now fixing what's most important, or addressing rather what's most important, so we can get to the things that are equally as important, but you just can't do them when you're trying to survive. Is that fair?
Yes, and somebody, we've had people really apply for services, and somebody that became sort of near and dear to Yolanda's heart, and many of the staff, because she was literally living on the street and said, I can't do this one more winter. I can't do this. And so those bitter cold days, really do kind of make all of us think, especially we participate in the Long Island Coalition for the Homeless annual homeless count on Long Island, and we go out into the street and actually as teams help to figure out how many people are out there and link them to services. And there are many, and more than people know. And when you do that and you start to think about, if there's a bad day where it's freezing and you're in your house saying, wow, it's so cold, I don't even want to go to the store, there's people that are living in the woods, and don't have that ability. And finally, when this particular individual was ready, she reached out and somebody was able to connect her to Options Housing, and she was housed. But we all wonder, what would have happened had that not occurred. She literally said, I could not get through one more winter of this. I can't do this anymore. Like, she was at that point. And,
Yeah.
and we're right here, we've been here for the whole time. So I feel, again, that if we're, people could just kind of reach out that helping hand, and we'll meet you. That's important to all of us. All these years later.
100%. And there's so much here. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, there is a section on the website. I'll share it when we go to break, where it talks about supportive services for people living with HIV/AIDS. And maybe we could talk to some of that when we come back. That will be kind of the final segment. We'll wrap it up when we come back. But there was one other thing I wanted to say, and it was, I know what it was. Whenever that thing is, Yolanda, I know you're listening and watching, whenever that event is, if somebody can volunteer and be a part of that, when you go out and do that count.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm raising my hand. I'm in.
Excellent.
Yolanda, I'm in. Allison, I'm in. All right. So we're going to take a quick break. I'll share some information from the website. We come back, we'll talk a little bit more, and we will wrap up the show. Allison, I appreciate you. We'll be right back.
I appreciate you.
What really drives success in business? Introducing Intangify, the show that explores the intangible assets that create value and growth. I'm Matthew Aspel, your host and an attorney focused on innovation. Join me Fridays at noon Eastern to discover how innovation, culture, and other intangibles shape thriving companies, from startups to established businesses. We'll share strategies to unleash your business's true potential. Tune in live on talkradio.nyc Fridays at noon Eastern and Intangify your business today.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy and Phocus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
And we are back. We are back. I don't know if it's the lid that I'm wearing today, but I feel like I'm a crooner. I always thought I should have been a singer. Maybe I should. Nonprofits need connections. Oh my God, like a songbird. Like a songbird, Allison. Oh my goodness. All right, everybody, it's Philanthropy and Focus. I'm Tommy D. You know the whole deal. Nonprofit sector connector. You know, no big deal. It's making the world a better place, but that's because I hang out with people who change the world every day. That's a choice, gang. You want to hang out with people in the hedge fund business? Go right ahead. You want to hang out with people that are doing social services and changing the world? I'm getting emotional. Then do that. You want to do volunteering? You want to get involved in your community? Do me a favor. Do it. Hashtag 60 days of service. All right. Allison, I shared, some information that the work that Options does is supported by the Ryan White funding. There's a lot of programming. People can check out this on the website. If they go under programs, health, wellness, recovery support section of the website, gang, optionscl.org is where you do that. But let's leave it all on the field, I like to say. Let's make sure, I know you took this journey as to all these years, and you had a chance over the last 24 hours to sort of reflect on, your own time with Options and things like that, and how it's been affected and how it's affected other people. I want you to say whatever you needed to say to get it out there so people know about Options, as well as if there's any resources that we can, provide through my network. Please put that out there as well.
Thank you, Tommy. You're a really, really great friend and a great support to the show. I mean, to the organization, your show too, but obviously, but to the organization, you've done a lot for us and I appreciate it. We appreciate you. One thing I guess I do want to highlight a little bit about is, what HIV stigma looks like, especially because that is the focus of the show month, and the day I believe is July 21st, which is, Stamp Out Stigma Day. And HIV stigma in particular is negative attitudes and beliefs about people with HIV. It's the prejudice that comes with labeling an individual as part of a group that is believed to be socially unacceptable. So what I feel like that translates into, and probably always has from the beginning for us, is trying to kind of look at yourself, like before you're trying to help other people, look at your own beliefs, the way you approach life. And that could be any type of disparity or difference between you and somebody else, right? And kind of think about what you would feel like if you were in their shoes, and, what do you need to do to help that difference? And what do you need to do to educate yourself about, if you have a fear about that, if you have a fear about, HIV, like find out about really what transmission looks like, because it's not that simple. And I think I've always known that to get, it's like you're working in a professional organization, you're providing services to people, you're not at risk. But maybe people still have that fear, I'm not sure. But when you're asking people about their risk, you also have to know what you want to say in response to that. Like I remember having a staff person many, many years ago who couldn't say one word about, like, she couldn't, if you said the word but in front of her, she would fall apart and start turning red. And I'm like, how are you having a conversation with a client about their sexual behavior if you can't even say anything that's in reference to a body part? Like you got to get more comfortable with being prepared for what they're going to tell you about how they, became HIV positive, and how to keep themselves safe. In order to have a discussion about, prevention with anybody, you really need to understand what you're talking about first, and then share ways that HIV can be transmitted, and model behavior, and make suggestions about how they can prevent getting HIV, getting tested, or into treatment and services, or all of the above. Get a self-test, if that's more comfortable, like whatever that looks like. We hired a diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging consultant because we needed some help in figuring it out, figuring out how to make ourselves more accessible to clients that are feeling, different, or feeling unequal in terms of their access to services. We need to do that as an agency, is to make sure we're being as accessible as possible. And that's a lot, in my opinion, harder than it might sound on paper, because you need to really look inward and then figure out how to educate yourself, and then try to help people, and do it in a way that's not biased and not discriminatory, because that's our job. So that's my spiel on stigma. And I still remember this woman, Marianne. She used to get bright red. She couldn't talk about sex or anything. It was really, really a barrier to the clients that we served. Her heart was in the right place. It's just, she couldn't get past the language.
Yeah. Well, again, that's something to think about too and consider as we make career options and decisions. Options. I love to just drop the word in options for community living, sneaked right in on me. But look, it's about that, folks. It's about, yes, you might want to serve and be on the front lines, but maybe there's different types of work for you if you don't fit, or you got to figure out a way to evolve and be part of the solution. Not that people don't have good intentions, but anyway, I'm rambling. That to me is critically important because we do in the sector need more and more staff and more people to do this type of work, right? To get out there and be on the front lines. What about, we have 1 minute left. Any resources, any community partners, anything either you want to shout out or maybe you're looking for connections with?
We have, again, when I mentioned the staff, first and foremost, that I never could have done anything without them, but also great partnerships in the community. Northwell Health is a partner. We got a lot of help along the way from both counties, from Long Island Coalition for the Homeless, from, the clinics. There's lots of support. Skyward Health is another part of the health home that we're partners with, United Way of Long Island, the New York State Department of Health. These are all places where we received approvals and funding and contracts and, the money to be able to do what we do, and the funding and Medicaid funding. So, we're very fortunate that not only did we have clients and great staff, but we had funders that believed in us and helped us every step of the way all these years later. So I'm in such a place of gratitude because of that.
I love that. And I love gratitude. I'm big on gratitude. I think if we focus on gratitude at education, we'd solve many of the problems in the world. Really, like I think about this word stigma, and I've been like obsessing maybe over it overnight, thinking about what it is. And I think if we, when I talk about it from an HIV perspective, we talk about it from mental health perspective, whatever the stigma is, if we educate in front of it and we combat this stigma with education, and people get understanding and compassion, and that all we need is love. He just starts singing in the middle of the show. But that's right. The four boys from Liverpool, right? That's what we need, man. That's it. Right on. That's it. Look, I'm like a hippie today, right? With the tie-dyed shirt and the whole deal. But that's what it is. It's all we need is love. So shout out to Northwell. I appreciate all the work they do. You mentioned Long Island Coalition for Homeless a bunch of times. Shout out to Greta Wharton. Greta, we got to get you on the show. I don't know what we're doing. One of us. We got to figure this out, Greta. I'm calling you out. Allison, Yolanda, help me get Greta on the show. And then because we got to tell these stories, and that's what your buddy is here to do. So Allison, I can't show you how grateful I am just here, but I do appreciate it. I appreciate your knowledge. Thank you. You're welcome. And just the work you're doing, the work you've done, and your team. Shout out to the team. 2 Michelles. I know there was a caller. I heard a Dave. You know who you are. Thank you. You tell them all. That's it. Look at this. Yolanda tells me on it. She started at options. That's called connections. She's referring to Greta. She's going to get Greta on my show. Your boy, Tommy D. That's what a nonprofit sector connector does, gang. No big deal. Just changing the world. I am over the hill excited about this. My day is just going to get better from here. You guys, I'm fired up every time I do the show. I know Steve Fry is going to come on. He's got to do the show. SMB guy, always Friday. So check in with Steve Fry. Logan, thanks for doing the work behind the glass, as they say in the business. And again, Allison, appreciate you. Look forward to connecting. Have a great day. Make it a great weekend, everybody. Later.
Bye.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
You're listening to Talk Radio.